Now, today we are going to discuss disaccharides, oligosaccharides, and what are glycosides. Now, we have already been introduced with the definition of carbohydrates, and Dr. Amna has already been told you about the classification of carbohydrates. There are three major classes of carbohydrates: monosaccharides, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. And you are very well aware that monosaccharides are called simple sugars, and they are consist of a single polyhydroxyaldehyde or ketone unit. And in nature, the most abundant monosaccharide is D-glucose. Oligosaccharides are consist of short chain of monosaccharide units or residues. Remember, when we use the word residues, it means the molecule is not free, it is being linked to another molecule by means of a linkage. And in case of oligosaccharide, that linkage is a glycosidic bond, which is a covalent bond. And the most abundant disaccharides are with the two monosaccharide unit linked by the glycosidic linkage. Disaccharides, as we know, they are made up of two monosaccharide residues linked by the glycosidic linkage. And the commonly existing disaccharides are maltose, cellulose, lactose, and sucrose. Now, one can define disaccharides as carbohydrates that can be hydrolyzed into two monosaccharide units. And remember one thing, for this hydrolysis, we need enzyme. For hydrolysis of disaccharides, we have disaccharidases, and the intestinal enzyme are there which act on sucrose, maltose, and lactose. So when disaccharides can be defined as the two monosaccharide unit linked by the glycosidic bond, or the compounds which on hydrolysis give two monosaccharide units. Like sucrose is comprised of glucose and fructose. Maltose is made up of two glucose residues, and these two glucose residues, they are being linked by the alpha 1,4 glycosidic bond. Cellulose is again made up of two glucose residues, but here the linkage is beta 1,4 linkage. In the last lecture, we discussed about how a glycosidic bond is formed, and there are two types of glycosidic bond, alpha and beta glycosidic bond, which based on the position of hydroxyl group at the anomeric carbon atom, and I will discuss this again. I will show you in the next slide. Lactose, which is commonly called as a milk sugar, and it is also being present in the human milk, and it is comprised of galactose and glucose. Lactose is the only source of nutrients till the age of 6 months, because till weaning, the baby, the newborn, rely exclusively on mother milk, and the only sugar which is present in the breast milk is lactose. Glucose is required for energy purposes, and galactose is required for the development of brain in newborns. Sucrose, which is commonly called as the table sugar, it is when hydrolyzed, it gives glucose and fructose. Here we will discuss the how a glycosidic bond is formed. You can see this is one glucose molecule in the ring form, and this is another glucose molecule. And you know that glucose is a 6-carbon sugar, and we have already discussed asymmetric carbon atom. In case of glucose, we have 4 asymmetric carbon atom. Carbon number 1 of the glucose is not an asymmetric carbon atom if the glucose is in the linear structure. But as a result of hemiacetal linkage, when this glucose molecule assumes a ring structure, that carbon 1 of the glucose become a asymmetric carbon atom, and that carbon is called anomeric carbon. So this is the anomeric carbon of this glucose residue. So hydroxyl group of the anomeric carbon of the one glucose residues, when condensed with the hydroxyl group at the carbon number 4 of the another glucose residues, with the elimination of one water molecule, a covalent bond is formed that is called the glycosidic bond. So glycosidic bond is a covalent bond, and to break this bond we need enzyme. As far as the maltose is concerned, remember that the source of maltose is that it is an intermediate in the when we consume starch, that is starch when undergo hydrolysis, we get maltose, isomaltose, dextrin and limit dextrin. So maltose is an intermediate in the digestion of starch. Now lactose, as I told you earlier, it is a disaccharide and it is a milk sugar, and it is comprised of the two monosaccharide residues. One is galactose and another is glucose. Now if you concentrate on this ring structure of the galactose, if you concentrate on the carbon number 1, the hydroxyl group is above the position of the carbon number 1. So this is a beta D galactose, and here you can see this is also a beta D glucose. Now a glycosidic bond is formed between the anomeric carbon of this galactose with the hydroxyl group at the carbon number 4 of the glucose residue, and the type of linkage is beta 1,4 linkage. Now we have lactase enzyme, which is an intestinal enzyme which is capable of hydrolyzing lactose into glucose and galactose. Maltose and lactose both are reducing sugar because this anomeric carbon of this glucose residue is free to be oxidized. In the last lecture we talked about the reducing property of the sugar. All monosaccharides and disaccharides except sucrose, they are reducing sugar, and a sugar is said to be reduced when its functional group, in case of this functional group glucose, it is aldehyde group, and in case of a keto sugar it is a carbonyl carbon. So when their carbonyl carbon is free, then it is ready to oxidize and it will reduce the other compounds. And you are very well aware that when sugars are oxidized, they are converted into sugar acids, and when the sugars are reduced, they form alcohols. Silobiose is another disaccharide, and you can see again it's made up of two glucose residues. This is one glucose residue and this is another glucose residue. And again, if you concentrate on this position of the hydroxyl group at the anomeric carbon or carbon number 1 of the glucose residue, the OH group is above the level of the carbon number 1. So this is beta D glucose. Now this hydroxyl group at carbon number 1 of the one glucose residues, when combined with the hydroxyl group at the carbon number 4 of the another glucose residue, the type of linkage is beta 1,4 linkage. So silobiose and the maltose, they are both made up of glucose residues, but the only difference is that of the linkage. In case of maltose it is alpha 1,4 linkage, and in case of silobiose it is beta 1,4 linkage. Now another important disaccharide is sucrose, which is commonly called as the table sugar, and it is also being called as inverse sugar. I will give you the reason why it is called inverse sugar, but remember one thing, sucrose is a non-reducing sugar. Why? Because we know that in case of fructose, which is a keto sugar, the carbonyl carbon is at the position number 2, and this is a functional group of the fructose. And we know that in case of this glucose residue, it is the carbon number 1 where the aldehyde group is present, and that is the functional group of this sugar. So sucrose is formed by the glycosidic bond between the carbon 1 of the glucose and carbon number 2 of the fructose. So both the functional group of these monosaccharide residues, they are being linked in a linkage. They are no more free, so they are non-reducing sugar. So similarly, whenever a glycosidic bond is formed, a water molecule is being eliminated, and this gives it a covalent bond, characteristics of a covalent bond. And now you are very well aware that sucrose is a non-reducing sugar because both the functional group, carbon number 2 of the fructose and carbon number 1 of the glucose, they are linked, they are being engaged in a linkage, and they are no more available to reduce any to oxidize. So type of linkage in case of sucrose is alpha 1 beta 2 glycosidic linkage. The alpha 1 of the glucose residue and the beta carbon number 2 of the fructose. So the type of linkage is alpha 1 beta 2 glycosidic linkage. Now if you remember, when I was discussing the physicochemical properties of the sugar in the previous lecture, I told you that sugars, when they are in solution form, they rotate the plane polarized light in opposite direction. Sucrose as a disaccharide has an optical rotation of a plus 66.5 degree. But when it is being hydrolyzed to its monosaccharide residue, that is the glucose and the fructose, the rotation moves from dextro, that is from right, to the left, that is the levo. So from dextro to rotation to the from right to the left, it becomes minus 19.5, and this process called inversion. From dextro rotatory it becomes a levo rotatory, and that's why it is called, also called as the invert sugar. This is another disaccharide, trehalose. Again, it is made up of 2 glucose residues. This is 1 glucose residue, and this is another glucose residue. But if you see here, the type of linkage is alpha 1,1 glycoside linkage. Anomeric carbon of the 1 glucose residues react with the hydroxyl group at the anomeric carbon of the another glucose residue, and it is, the type of linkage is alpha 1,1 glycoside linkage, and we don't have any enzyme that can break this alpha 1,1 glycosidic linkage. Now these are disaccharides we have just discussed, and this chart will show you the sources of these different disaccharides and the clinical disorder related to these disaccharides. Maltose, as I told you earlier, that it is an intermediate of the starch digestion, and we get not only maltose, but we also get isomaltose, dextrin and limit dextrin. The sources are germinating cereals and malt. There is no disorder related to the maltose maltase deficiency. Now lactose, as I told you, for disaccharides, intestine produces disaccharidases which act on maltose, lactose and sucrose, and these are called maltase, lactase and sucrase enzyme. You are very well aware that lactose is a milk sugar, and lactase deficiency is common in South Asia and especially in this Japanese, and it is not common in the early phases of the life or in early years of the life, but as the person grows older, even after the age of 40 years, the lactase deficiency is being observed. And lactase deficiency can lead to a condition that is called as lactose intolerance, and it can lead to diarrhea, flatulence, and as far as the sucrose is concerned, cane and the beet sugar, sorghum, pineapple, carrot roots, they are the sources of sucrose. And simultaneously, sucrase deficiency can lead to malabsorption, leading to the diarrhea and the flatulence. Trehalose is mainly found from the fungi and the yeast, and it is the major source of insect hemolymph, and no clinical disorder related to this disaccharide. Now here you can see what happens to the lactose when individual consume dairy products or milk. intestinal enzyme lactase act on this disaccharide lactose and convert it into glucose and galactose, which are then absorbed into the circulation. This is the normal metabolism. Now, those individuals who are suffering from the lactase deficiency, what happens that when those individuals they consume dairy products or milk, then what happens, since they don't have the enzyme lactase, so this cannot be further hydrolyzed to the individual monosaccharides. It is being then acted by the intestinal bacteria and undergo bacterial fermentation, and as a result of this various gases and acids are formed. And what happens, this acids, they have an osmotic effect, so it imbibe water from the intestine, and it will lead to distension of the abdomen, abdominal pain, and the diarrhea. Now we can further elaborate that if an individual consume a glass of milk which mainly contain 200 ml of milk, then lactase deficient individual, as we discussed in the previous slide, it will undergo bacterial fermentation and different gases and acids are formed. What are those gases? It is the methane and the hydrogen gases are formed, and this lactose is being converted into lactic acid, and this lactic acid has a osmotic effect, so it imbibe water from the intestinal lumen, and it may go up to the fluid load can go up to the 1 liter. As a result of this, these gases and this osmotic effect of this lactic acid, there is a distension of abdomen. It will lead to increased intestinal peristalsis of movement, and it also will lead to malabsorption of the other dietary contents, which may be the fat, proteins, and drugs, and it will lead to ultimately watery diarrhea. So the lactase deficiency or lactose intolerance can be diagnosed by two methods. If the individual who is suffering from this lactose intolerance, avoidance of all dairy products, if results in relief of symptoms, then it is confirmed that the person is or the individual is suffering from the lactose intolerance, or in other case the hydrogen content of the patient breath after a test dose of lactose has been consumed can lead to the diagnosis of lactose intolerance. Now this slide shows you that an individual who is suffering from the lactose intolerance or enzyme lactase deficiency can present with these signs and symptoms. Usually it will give history of, first of all, the consumption of the milk or those of the dairy products, followed by the this abdominal distension, diarrhea, abdominal cramps, bloating, gas passage of flatulence, that is the gases, and increased gut sounds, as we have seen that as a result of this osmotic effect, the water is imbibed from the intestinal lumen into the from the intestine into the intestinal lumen, and the gurgling signs. So these are various symptoms which with the patient may present to the doctor. Oligosaccharides, we have just discussed the one class of oligosaccharides that were the disaccharides. So when the molecule is comprised of more than 2 up to 10 or 11 monosaccharide residues linked by the glycoside linkage, they are called oligosaccharides. Now oligosaccharides, you can see here that it comprised of 2 to 10 monosaccharide units, or it may contain monosaccharide derivatives also, not only monosaccharides. And in cell, these oligosaccharides don't exist as free entities. They are either linked to the protein or to the lipids, the non-glucose part, and when they are linked to the protein, they are called glycoproteins, and when they are linked to the lipids they are called glycolipids. So in case of glycolipids and glycoproteins, the carbohydrate part is comprised of an oligosaccharide chain. Now there are two type of broad classes of these oligosaccharides. Either they may link to the non-sugar part either by N-glycosidic linkage, or they may link to these proteins and lipids by means of the O-glycosidic linkage. So there are two broad classes, N-linked oligosaccharides and O-linked oligosaccharides, and mainly they exist in cell either as glycolipids or as glycoproteins. Now, as we discussed in the previous slide, that oligosaccharides, they don't exist as free entities. So they are linked to the proteins. And you can see here, this is an oligosaccharide. And you can see this is salic acid, monosaccharide, galactose. And as I told you earlier, that not only monosaccharide, it may, these oligosaccharide chain may contain monosaccharide derivatives as N-acetyl glucose, or it may also contain mannose, and you are very well aware that salic acid is a monosaccharide derivative, a 9-carbon sugar. And this is the protein part, and you can see here this it is being linked to this protein part by means of the N-glycosidic linkage. You can see the nitrogen of this N-acetyl glucose linked to the protein part of this glycoprotein structure. Now this is another example of the N-linked glycosidic this linkage, where the oligosaccharide part is attached to the protein, glycoprotein, by means of the N-glycosidic linkage. And here you can see this oligosaccharide part has contained more mannose residues as compared to the previous one. So highly mannose residues with simple monosaccharide and monosaccharide derivatives attached to the protein part by means of the N-glycosidic linkage. This is another class of the oligosaccharide attached to the protein part. And you can see here that here it is the O-glycosidic type of linkage is there. So oligosaccharides, they may get attached to the protein or the lipids either by means of the O or N-glycosidic linkage. Now this is a structure of salic acid. Salic acid is a 9-carbon sugar derivative. It is a monosaccharide derivative, and it is also called an N-acetyl nuraminic acid, NANA. You are very much familiar with this word NANA. NANA is N-acetyl nuraminic acid. This belongs to the class of this family of the salic acid. And why I have shown you this salic acid? Because the next protein which I'm going to, glycoprotein I'm going to discuss, has the high content of this salic acid. Now this is the structure of a glycoprotein that is called glycophorin, and it is, you can see it is being present throughout the span of the lipid bilayer, and this is the intracellular part of this glycophorin. And here you can see these are the oligosaccharides which are attached to these glycoproteins, and you can see there that mostly these oligosaccharides, they are attached, these are the sugar residues, okay, and they are mostly, if you just concentrate, they are either attached to the serine or to the aspartate residues of this protein molecule. This is the extracellular part, and you can see only these oligosaccharides attached to, see here it is serine again, you can see in the serine. So mostly these oligosaccharides, they attach to the protein part by its serine residue, and they as I told you that this glycophorin has a high content of salic acid. So this salic acid, presence of salic acid gives, and this glycophorin is present on the membrane, red blood cell membrane. So it gives a very hydrophilic charge code to the RBC. This is the significance of the glycophorin, which is mainly present on the surface of the red blood cell. And it has been claimed that it is the salic acid content which is when removed from this glycophorin, it is being assumed that it is an indication for the macrophages that this cell has completed its lifespan of 120 days and it should be removed from the circulation. Now these are the various functions of the oligosaccharide part of the glycoproteins. Number one is that they increase solubility and stability of the protein. They prevent this protein from the enzymatic degradation. And these oligosaccharides, since they are attached only to the extracellular part of the glycoprotein and glycolipids, so they have a role in the recognition and cell-to-cell interaction. And why this cell-to-cell interaction and recognition is important? Because it is a key factor in the fertilization, inflammation, development, and differentiation. As I discussed earlier, that it prevents the protein from the enzymatic proteolysis and from extremes of pH and temperature. These oligosaccharides, mainly this salic acid, is give viscosity to the glycoproteins, and as a mucus it facilitates the transport of food in the GIT, and it also has a role in the regulation of enzyme activities. So these are the various functions, and as a part of this glycolipids, these oligosaccharide parts, they have a antigenic property, and the sequence of this oligosaccharides is being used to determine the blood group of individual. So they are blood group determinants also. Here we will discuss glycosides. Now sugars form glycosides with other compounds and with each other. If you are going to define the glycosides, glycosides are non-reducing organic compound that on hydrolysis yield, number one, a sugar part which is called the glycan part, and it is made up, it is comprised of one or more sugar residues, and a non-sugar part which is called aglycon, or it is also called being genin. Or we can define glycosides as compound containing glycosidic bonds. Examples of these glycosides include disaccharides, polysaccharides, and some carbohydrate derivatives. Now glycosides, as in the previous slide we discussed, that they may have a sugar part which is called the glycan part, and a non-sugar part which is an aglycan part, or the sugars residues may interact with each other by means of the glycosid linkage, and as we discussed, the examples are disaccharides, polysaccharides, and some derivatives. So glycosides are formed by condensation between the hydroxyl group of an anomeric carbon of a monosaccharide, hydroxyl group of the anomeric carbon of a monosaccharide or monosaccharide residue, and the second compound. It may be a sugar or it may not be a sugar or monosaccharide. So these non-monosaccharides or non-sugar part, which is called as the aglycon part, they can be methanol, they can be glycerol, it can be an sterol, a phenol, or a base such as the adenine. Now there are some important cardiac glycosides are there which are being used as in the field of medicine, and they include the derivatives of digitalis, aubain, which is an inhibitor of the sodium potassium ATPase of the cell membrane, and an antibiotic which is called as streptomycin. So these are the few examples of the glycosides where the sugars attach to the non-carbohydrate part. Now this is the structure of the aubain, which is being used to treat hypertension. And you can see here, this is the sugar part. glycan part, and this is the non-sugar part, and you can see the multiple OH groups are there. So as we discussed in the previous slide, it can be a sterol, it can be an alcohol, it can be methanol. So this is the structure of a glycoside with a glycan part, and this is the aglycan part, which is the non-sugar part. And you know that auben is a inhibitor of the sodium potassium ATPase of the ATPase pump, which is present on the cell membrane.